And Europe should rapidly come up with a plan for a European-only security arrangement and then boot the United States the hell off your continent. But you're not going to do that because you don't have political leadership. You don't have courage. You don't have anything. You're pathetic. I don't mean to be too harsh, but Europe is a collection of pathetic leaders at the head of pathetic states who are incapable of doing anything decisive. I don't understand what Europe thinks. Europe's in an extraordinarily bad position, primarily because of, successive failed policies. They have allowed themselves for decades to become completely subordinated to the United States economically, politically, militarily. There is no genuine sovereignty in Europe. They can sit there and meet and talk and plot. But at the end of the day, if they want a trade war with the United States at a time when they have voluntarily severed their energy relationship with Russia, allowing the United States to hijack their energy security, knowing that we can strangle them in a heartbeat. I mean, come on. This is a tragic joke. I'm not happy about this. I'm not sitting here extolling what President Trump is doing. I condemn it in the harshest terms. But the fact of the matter is, there's not a damn thing Europe can do to stop President Trump from taking Greenland. Europe should rapidly come up with a plan for a European-only security arrangement and then boot the United States the hell off your continent. But you're not going to do that because you don't have political leadership. You don't have courage. You don't have anything. You're pathetic. I don't mean to be too harsh, but Europe is a collection of pathetic leaders at the head of pathetic states who are incapable of doing anything decisive. The entirety of Europe, what Europe is today, is completely dependent upon the United States. The one aspect of freedom that Europe had, the energy security that was provided by their relationship with Russia, has been terminated. Now Europe is committing suicide in Ukraine. I mean, the dumbest place in the world to commit suicide. I don't understand ideologically why Europe allows itself to be subjected to revisionist history. This is a corrupt regime that has embraced a despicable ideology that is, it's a manufactured state. Historically, that's an accurate statement. And Europe's going to commit suicide for this. Why? Because they were told by Daddy, America, that this was necessary, that, to sustain the NATO relationship, NATO needed an enemy, and that enemy would be Russia. Well, it turns out the enemy was the United States all along. Everybody has come to the realization now. I mean, again, I couldn't agree more with the conclusions reached by, the head of the European Commission. It's an accurate statement. It's a fully accurate statement, but it's totally divorced from reality. What the hell is Europe going to do? I mean, you don't have an economy. Let me tell you the reality of Europe, what's going to happen in the coming years. If Europe decides to confront the United States, we will crush you. And then the European Union will collapse. And then Europe will be a collection of sovereign states, many of whom are going to gravitate to the United States because of their weakness. Others will gravitate away. And now Europe is deeply fractured. And the United States will exploit this fracturing. I mean, to be honest, the best thing Europe could do right now is get out of NATO and join a defensive alliance with Russia. But they won't do that because they've been conditioned not to. But I think Europe needs to get rid of its current political and economic elite. Everybody who's sitting in Davos today is an enemy of Europe. These aren't the friends of Europe. These are the people that got you where you are. Don't forget that. They're all sitting there today kneeling before King Trump, afraid to do anything. But these are the people that got you to where you are. Nobody else got you to where you are but the elites gathered in Davos. And to pretend that they're somehow going to lead you out of the problems they created is absurd thinking. Europe has to redefine itself. Look, the dream of a united Europe was a nice dream. It was a nice dream. But it's a failed dream because the united Europe concept was completely dependent upon a security infrastructure and an economic infrastructure dominated by the United States. Europe thought they were charting a path towards, regional sovereignty, and all they did is ensure their collective subordination to the United States. Can they recover? Look, stranger things have happened. Is there a leader or a collection of leaders out there in Europe that have yet to be defined who can emerge and unite Europe and guide them out of this difficult situation they find? Yes, but the leaders aren't named Macron. He's a failed leader of France. The leaders aren't named Starmer. He's a failed leader of England. The leaders aren't named Merz. He's a failed leader of Germany. Europe today is governed by a collection of failed leaders. There is no way to escape that conclusion. And these failed leaders are advised by economic advisors who have led Europe down this path of calamity. Who the hell thought it was a good idea to cut yourself off from Russian energy without a viable plan B? I mean, I'm not an economist. I'm just a simple Marine. I don't claim to have any, complex, global financial transactional capacity in my gourd. But I know that 2 + 2 = 4. And when you take a look at Europe and you take a look at how Europe became successful, especially in the 70s and 80s, a large part of that was because Europe wasn't paying a premium for energy. Europe was getting a good deal from the Russians. And Europe was also living off the largesse of the United States in terms of security. The American underwriting of NATO helped liberate Europe of the need to spend trillions of dollars over the years on defense. And so because of this, Europe was able to prosper.